Right, okay, everyone. What an interesting day we've had today. Old Hammer came back, so Warhammer the Old World was released. Now, obviously, if you tried to get one online, you probably found out that they disappeared very, very quickly. Um, no other way to put that. It was in high demand, and right away, everyone wanted it, myself included, and pretty much anyone that I know who plays really. It was just, and even when I went into Games Workshop, I'm not saying it was insanely heaving. There weren't queues or anything, but you could see they weren't, they were there. They were, like people were like, can I really afford like 100 and almost 200 quid? And you could see them like torn. Some of them just picked up the books because they had the old armies that they wanted to play within the new system, but it was obvious, and I feel that it's kind of very important to recognise that the old world is, for a lot of us, it was our first proper fantasy world. Even if we'd heard about Lord of the Rings, like for myself, I sort of walked into my first Games Workshop with my dad about 10, something like that. So for myself, I didn't even know what Lord of the Rings was when I was that age. So walking into a Games Workshop, it was all new to me. I'd played a bit of D&D when I was a little bit younger, but obviously, but again, it's different when you're very younger. So for me, the old world was my first proper mythological world, and it wowed me. And of course, the map that we got one issue of Warhammer, White Dwarf, showed us a world that looked like our own, but was obviously not our own. And all those beautiful, the map was all laid out, and there was all these little places. I remember when we used to play Warhammer Quest, that map, I would use that map all the time. I would literally show, I'd put a little sticky dot on it, and I'd show my party where they were traveling as a games master. I would say, you're at this place, you're heading towards, the deserts of Kemri. Back then, of course, all undead were kind of wrapped together in an undead army, so you would have mummies as a unit rather than specifically as a character. The idea of all that travelling, anyway, so the thing is, it was my first world that I really invested time in. I of course fell into 40k. I probably enjoyed 40k's lore more than Warhammer's, but I played Warhammer more than any other system. It was my pleasure. I had a dwarven army. I wish I still had it, but again, 10 years ago when I moved house, I sold everything thinking, don't have time for it and all of this. So, when the old world was discontinued, I'd already stopped being into it. Unfortunately, the best way to describe it is all my friends moved away for jobs, for work, for marriage, and I stayed in my home village. So I was kind of left isolated. I was only really playing with my nephew at the time, and even then, when he got old enough to start worrying about work and jobs and girlfriends, that kind of dropped away, and it felt like I didn't need those things. And then a few years ago, as my son started getting older, I started wanting to play again. I started collecting again. My wife started furrowing her brow again. And it's brought me pleasure. And then Total War Warhammer came along, and it filled the void of missing Warhammer for me. It was, beautiful, and yet every single time I played, I wanted to paint my own faction, to see them out in front of me. So today matters to myself and people like me. So I've just noticed that my camera's at a weird angle, but I don't care. I'm finishing this angle. I'm going to tilt my head in a bit different. Maybe it'll sort itself out. I don't know. If I could do this slightly. Anyway, so for myself, it's like returning to your family home. You know, opening up all the models today. Hopefully you've seen my videos by now. Yes, I've critiqued them. That's my job. Well, that's not my job, but you know what I mean. I'm making these videos so I can give you an appraisal of what I think of things. So I've given an honest appraisal of the miniatures within the Bretonia and Khemri boxes. I don't know if I was too harsh at some points, but I felt that I want the old world to be successful, and maybe someone from Games Workshop will see this video, I don't know, and maybe listen to what I have to say about it. You know, I'm hardly a famous YouTuber. I think I just hit 360 subs, so I don't have the clout to make a dang difference, I suppose. But you know what? Hopefully, you know, someone will listen, someone will say, well, okay, you know what? Maybe this guy actually represents our 40-something gamers, you know, mate. Well, you know, I mean, I only speak for myself, but you know, like, I am what I am. I don't hide from the fact that I'm a 40-year-old white male computer scientist who loves models, who teaches his subject as well. You know, and that's it. That's who I am. That's my demographic, you know, but there's more to my demographic than that. I hope, you know, people realise that. I am, you know, lover of yoga. I travel to the Philippines. I have a wife from there. You know, I, you know, believe that I engage in, you know, respect and tolerance and things like. Anyway, so the thing is, there's a lot of people like me out there who need the old world to work. Okay, we want it to be a success. We really do. We want it to be a game that come back and better than ever. You know, we really want that. We don't want it to die. In the same way that I'm more interested in the Horus Heresy than I am in Warhammer 40k, because the story is more grounded to what I like. You know, I don't dislike the Primaris, I don't dislike the new stories, but I started collecting just as the Beaky Marines were kind of on the way out and the new Aquila armour are on the way in. So as the Aquila armour has been lost, it leaves a kind of a feeling that, you know, and the rules have changed, and you know, and you shouldn't be set in your ways, and you shouldn't refuse to do something just because it's different. You know, you shouldn't hate something just because it changed. But you know, these things are what people are, and everyone has the right and the desire, if they feel that things either don't need to change or do need to change, or even if they feel that maybe things should go back a little bit, their voice is just as valid as anyone else's. Anyway, so what's this video? I'm waffling, I'm 8 minutes in, and some of you might wonder, well, what the hell is this man on about at the moment? Well, okay, you know what? I'm having a moment. Maybe if you're like myself and you are, you know, of that time, you know, of that old Hammer time, and you're wondering, you know, what other people think, you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think the models are old. Do I dislike the models? No, I love the models. Okay, but do I think technology has got better and we could have better models now? Yes, but I don't care, because I'm going to play Warhammer, and I'm going to play Warhammer in the old world. And that doesn't mean that I won't touch Age of Sigmar, because I think that is as beautiful as well. It's beautifully crafted fantasy world, and I'm glad they did it. And I love 40k because the lore, but I'm reading the Horus Heresy, and everything that 40k told us seems to be a lie. And people were like, well, hang on a second, how can you have canon and it not be true. And it's like, because it's 10,000 years later and history is written by the victors. It's simple. So 30k can tell us one thing, the Horus Heresy can tell us one thing. The Horus Heresy can tell us that the Emperor was actually inherently evil, and that it was Horus who was good. It doesn't matter, because Horus didn't win. And this is what we've got a beautiful old world back. Alright, it's set before the end times, good. We've got history to deal with. It's still at the point where the Empire is the Empire. They've just started getting their black powder weapons, I'm guessing around about this time. I'm trying to think, I'm going to have to read up exactly where it's set, during the era of Magnus the Pious. So a little bit further back before the end times. Don't think it's hundreds, we're not talking Mordheim destruction, I think we're talking a bit later than that. You know, again, all of these things matter. I'm going to have to check if my favourite Empire faction, the Solend, still exists. You know, obviously Solend was destroyed by an Otwa. It was, you know, brought into, I think, Talbotland or Talabheim. They're very similar names, some of these. So how do we make Warhammer the Old World a success? Well, of course, I trust Games Workshop, for the most part, know what they're doing. You know, they're a good business. If I had a bit of money, I'd have probably invested in them by now, but you know, I'm using my money for other things. What am I thinking when I go on this path? Well, what's next? So if we accept right here and now that the models are old, okay, they are 20 years old. In fact, I am certain that the Khemri line are 30 years old, some of them. In terms of wargaming, that's ancient. Okay, I mean, you know, it's like it's not quite the difference between GTA 1 and GTA 5, but in a lot of ways it's that logic. Times have moved on. Manufacturing concepts have improved. CGI has come along, so we can build things in 3D models. I can build 3D models. I can do houses better than I can do models. I mean, I'm terrible at the moment at doing faces. I've noticed that the drawing has improved. Anyway, I'm waffling again. Okay, so what's next? What do I want to see coming up? Okay, the orcs are coming. So I've seen a thing about that today. The orcs are coming. The orcs and goblin tribes are coming. I haven't had a chance to read through the rule books yet. Are the night goblins coming? That is one of my kind of first little bubbles that I'm probably not going to spend ages editing this, but if you can all just please imagine that I've got a fantastic editor for my YouTube videos, and he's kind of put a bubble here that basically says, you know, like, here's Richard's thoughts. Orcs and goblins. Right. Are the night goblins going to be there? The night goblins are one of those lines that is still, as far as I'm aware, going strong as the Gloom Spike gets. So, is there a place for both of those factions? Now, part of me feels that there is. Okay, I believe that if you're playing Age of Sigmar and you like your orc and goblins, your orcs, you are simply only going to play Gloomspite Gits, and if you are a lover of the old world, you are going to play the Night Goblins. So I believe that, you know, it is possible to go down both paths. However, again, could you potentially use some kind of base converter to use both? That might work as well. I'm having a look at that. If I get round to it, I'm going to have a look if it's possible to put basically the circle bases as the squares with the right kind of base conversion. That would solve everyone's problems. It would also allow certain Gloomspite Git models to be used in Oldhammer. You know, we know Fanatics, Moonclan Fanatics, they probably have the same base, circular base size. Squig herds, again, circular bases, that tends to be a thing with those kind of skirmish units. It was always that way in Warhammer quite often, using circular bases for certain units like fanatics. So I believe to begin with, my first point, is there any space for night goblins and moon clans? Yes, there is. Do I believe that they're going to be there? I hope so, but I haven't checked yet. I hope they're going to be there, night goblins, because I believe that they were the thing that stopped Games Workshop's or goblin clans being simply generic goblins, and I think that really matters. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside for a second. Now, the Dwarven Mountain Holds, I've been told by someone that they're not included, but then I saw something on Games Workshop saying they were included. I'm convinced that they are included because in Age of Sigmar there is no real faction of Dwarven Mountain Holds. Officially, they've all been eradicated, and any surviving dwarves Duradin are either up in the clouds, fire slayers, Yeah, I think I said that right, actually. So there's a place for the Dwarven Mountain Holds. Now, I'm not going to rattle off every single faction here. I'm going to start thinking what I think the future of Warhammer the Old World looks like. So if we accept that to begin with, we're going to have a limited number of factions available. So we're going to have the Empire, Bretonnia, the Dwarves, the High Elves. Remember, the High Elves, again, it's the Lumineth in Age. I think I got that right. In Age of Sigmar, they are a different faction. It's very clear about that. So the High Elves are fine. Orcs, Tomb Kings. Again, Tomb Kings very unique. I don't think we're going to see the vampire count straight away, and I think the reason behind that is because in Age of Sigmar, the current factions are too much like them. In fact, they're not just too much like them. If you took the Nighthawns, if you took the what are they called now? The vampires. I don't know what the official. So the Soulblade Grislaws, the Vampire Group, and the Ghouls, the Ghoul Court. They are basically the vampire counts in different garbs, basically, aren't they? So I don't think we're going to expect to see the vampire counts unless they roll the vampire counts back to an earlier version, a significantly earlier version of them, so that they are very different, inherently different. Okay. So now this is where we start to fall into an interesting set of what ifs. Will they give us the Ogre Kingdoms? Now, I'm going to say no. But, you see, I'm a great believer in looking at the data. So what does the data tell me? The data tells me people are probably not going to collect the Ogre Kingdoms and the Ogre War Crushers. They are not going to collect them both. I don't believe that for a second. So what do? Well, except if you've been watching the Age of Sigmar, they brought in the militia recently, the Free Guild Militia. And in the Free Guild Militia, what do we see? We see ogres. But they do not look like the ogre from the Ogre Kingdom range. They are different. They are significantly different in appearance. Okay, it's not even like they're a bit different, these ogres. They are very different. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter if they call it a man-eater, it doesn't look like an ogre man-eater. It doesn't look like an ogre man-eater, it looks like an ogre man-eater. what does that mean for the future? I suspect, again, they're not going to update the Ogre Kingdom range for the Old World. What they're going to do is they're going to bring in the new Ogre more tribes. They're going to take on a uniquely Age of Sigmar flavour, and then we'll see the Ogre Kingdoms return back home. And I don't think it's the only faction that we're going to see that happening. I believe that if we watch carefully and look at the way things are happening, we're going to see a very sort of subtle change over time. Let's take a faction like the Skaven. The Skaven Rat Men. That, I don't think I ever have known any other gaming system with rat men. Maybe someone will say, look, D&D had them ages ago. Okay, you know what, if they did, I'm sorry to D&D gamers, I don't really play it. I will do it sometimes. Don't disagree with it. In fact, I'd love to spend a bit of time doing it. But I don't recall there being rat men in there. So, the Skaven. The Skaven are one of those. The entire range of Skaven in the Age of Sigmar, it's rather explicit from my point of view. I don't think they're different. They are very much the Skaven of the Old World. Everything just seems to be exactly the same. Maybe they've added a few models over time, but for the most part, they are exactly what you get, the Skaven. Now, what do you do if you want to return the Skaven to the Old World? You either build a new line of Skaven for the Old World, or you give the Skaven of the New World, the Age of Sigmar world, a tech upgrade. And we've seen it done before. The Arcanauts, they are exactly that. They are Durridin, who have become technologically more advanced. They are, if the Old World had continued, that would have been the natural progression from my point of view for a lot of these factions. Personally, I think the reason the Old World got burned is because of legal issues in the background, not because of any hatred towards the old system. I think they had a story planned out, then things happened, and it was better to burn the world and start new. I think a lot of people agree with that assertion. So, Skaven, yes, we can have a technological upleap for them. We can change the models. We can, really transform them, make them an Age of Sigmar Skaven. Gosh, what that would mean. I mean, could you imagine the danger of an up-teched group of Skaven? I assume, they're going to be, kind of gunning for the Arcanauts kind of thing. Maybe we'll end up with another Sky Force, Sky Skaven, one of those. Can you imagine anything more hideous than a bunch of rats dropping on your head? Humanoid rats. Hey, do that. Skaven. Come back to the Old World. That is where I believe this is going. I could be wrong. Okay. It could be. But for a few years, ever since the very second they introduced that the Old World was returning, I look back on the kind of changes to the factions in the Age of Sigmar, the ranges that were brought along, the alterations that were made, and then I thought to myself, well, that's not going to work because the Empire models are used in the Age of Sigmar, and what happened? Free Guild Militias came across. Beautiful, they look like they belong in the Age of Sigmar. Fantastic models, great job, Games Workshop. I honestly cannot fault the models you've been pulling out in the last few years. One of those, congratulations, you have kind of made up for a certain Grey Knight in his He-Man suit, or whatever it is, his weird exoskeleton. I hated that thing, I have no idea what it was anyway. you've up your game, and the Age of Sigmar is a beautiful thing in itself. I want to make it very, very clear. Not everyone likes it, but I will not ever turn around and say that doesn't look technically brilliant. Right down to the Sylvaneth. I hate elven things, and I have fallen in love with the Sylvaneth. I am literally going to try and get myself a Branch Witch girlfriend at the moment. I love it that much. Now, so this is the thing. I don't think we're going to see new models for a lot of factions in the old world. I predict a kind of a funneling system where factions will be altered in the Age of Sigmar, and as that happens, those old models will return to the old world. Now that will mean that the old world will pretty much be made up of ancient models at that point. As I said, the skeletons in the Tomb King's box are from at least 1993. I know they are. I'm 100% convinced of it. I'm standing here insisting that it's true. You can tell me I'm wrong. Do it if you think I'm wrong. But anyway, so now that leaves me into an interesting place. Okay, so if we accept that we're not going to see any new armies, we're not going to see any entire lines overhauled in the old world, what's going to happen is any factions that they cannot support straight away in the old world will be brought in incrementally, but only after they have been naturally fed out of the Age of Sigmar and then replaced with models that suit that setting. Okay, because the Ogor Moor tribes, they don't look right with the new models. They just look something wrong about them. The Skaven, again, watch. I would not be surprised. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, but you'll see it happen. It'll suddenly transform from one thing to the next. So, watch this space, I suppose. So what does that mean, though? Well, the thing is, we might want new factions in the future for the old world. As I said, I don't believe any of the old armies are going to get an update anytime soon. Okay, you've got more chance of the Chaos Dwarfs returning to the. I'd have said you've got more chance of the Squats returning to 40k, but anyway, you see, but yeah, I might be wrong about that. The Chaos Dwarfs might suddenly pop back up again. Forge World used to make them. Anyway, so, but I'm sorry, but Warhammer 3, Games Workshop did not sit down with Creative Assembly, spend years creating Kislev, Cathai, and actually the Chaos Dwarfs, now that I think about it. I've made my words there, haven't I? They did not spend ages creating 3 factions, one of which never existed in the old world to begin with. Create 3 factions and not use all that hard work, all that concept art, all that lore, all of those 3D models that they made for that game. Do you believe we're not going to see them in the old world in the future? That's a lot of effort for just a computer game when you're planning on bringing back the game. Now, I don't want to use like a kind of, what's it called now? Like a racial prejudice. But people like to see factions that reflect themselves. You cannot hide from that, okay? It's silly, but there's a lot of people who like the Empire because they look like medieval Europeans, okay? It's fun. I like dwarfs because I'm short and fat. Come on, I mean, let's be fair about this, yeah. When you're a short, fat guy, you know, I mean, I think it's. Oh, I'm generalising myself. I'm stereotyping myself now, but I know an awful lot of dwarven players, and we definitely tend to share certain characteristics. The only thing is, I can't grow a beard, unfortunately. I can grow facial hair, but I look at if I try and grow a beard, I don't get that. I'm no good for that. Anyway. So the thing is, Cathai, you know, you can't hide from the fact that if you create that army, you know, people, and as I said, I don't want to sound like I'm saying, oh, people from Asia need it. No, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is my son is of Asian heritage. He's from Filipino heritage, you know. Now, although the Philippines doesn't have the what you might call the traditional Asian look, but the reality is, you know, when he sees a Filipino YouTuber on YouTube, well, where else would you see one? It matters to him, and that's it, you know. So I have no doubt that if you have Cathai, you know, people are going to see that. And they're going to feel like it represents them, and they're going to want it. Or at least I think they do. I think, or I hope Games Workshop have done a good job of creating a fantastical version of sort of what you might call China, Korea, Japan, that kind of, you know, without it being stereotypical, or at least that's what I hope it comes across as. So of course, I think people would be right to desire it. If they, obviously we know for a fact that the Khemri, of course, has long since engaged in attrition and become all skeletons, but you know, in the end, it's that idea of a powerful, you know, nation synonymous with ancient Northern Africa around what we would call the modern day Arab world. Now, again, even though many Egyptians, you know, they recognise that they might have, you know, roots in Egypt, you know, they also recognise that the people who used to be in Egypt were a mix of ancient Egyptians and then Greeks and then the Arab invasion, but they still love the history of their country. They still have a feeling that it matters, you know. So I have no doubt that someone sees that who loves their country like Egypt and into Egyptology, and they, you know, there's a good chance that they are, or they get annoyed that it's really stereotypical. I don't know. I can't read people's minds. And I have no doubt that if Games Workshop managed to, you know, potential. Anyway, what I'm saying is, it's all about trying to ensure that people are recognised, and you know, I can't see them not going down that path. I cannot imagine them not trying to create Kislev, not trying to create Cathai, not trying to create the Chaos Source when they put all the effort in. So that's where I think the future of the Old Hammer is. You know, yes, they're going to bring back the older ranges. They're going to kind of move them, and slowly it's going to come along. But then, well, okay, but you know, what's the future look like? I mean, because the thing is, there's a good chance that a lot of old players still have that old army, so they're not particularly inclined to go buying more at the moment. They want to see that it's worth the investment. So how do you get new players? Well, new armies, new factions, and they've got 3 beautiful factions lined up in Cathai, Kislev, and against us, potentially. But we don't know, because unless we work for Games Workshop, we can't read their minds. But we can think about what's the logical future. And I want this game to succeed. Okay, I want it back. And I want it to be there in 50 years. Honestly, I do. You'd never know what the future will hold. You know, all of human history is folly to the march of time. But you know, in the here and now, you know, what we do, how we treat each other matters, and how we live our lives and how we enjoy ourselves matters. And I think that's me done for the night, because I am tired. I've had a busy day. Because I don't just play around with models and paint them, I also do family stuff. So I'm burned out now, and I've had a nice day, and I've had a happy day, and I'm trying to remind myself I should go to bed because I'm not young anymore, and if I don't get a good night's sleep, I'm no good. What do you think? Honestly, I'd love to hear what you think about Oldhammer, about the future, about what Games Workshop are planning, what you hope for the future. I also want you to like and subscribe. Okay, and I think pretty soon I'm going to be building those videos. I'm going to have to try and do them all tomorrow. The good thing is, because there's so many repeated sprues, it's just really a matter of very quickly building one, showing you how to do it, and then going, next. I will see you in the next video.